as well. We've disabled the microphones right from the start because we've had one or two issues with connectivity of late, and we're trying to protect the bandwidth. So just for the start and for the duration of Adrian's presentation, we'll restrict that. But I will take that restriction off at the end. And if you have any questions, you'll be able to raise your hands and ask them of Adrian at the end of the session as well. If you do have any questions, pop them in the Q&A during the presentation, and we'll have a sweep of those at the end as well. One thing I would ask, since we're on an open forum, it would never be good practice to ask specific questions. Keep them as generic as possible. Don't go into too much detail about your own business or indeed the markets or sectors that you're looking to enter into. And I will also mention at the end, we will be including a brief customer survey in the chat, which is closed at the moment, but I'll open that up at the end as well. And I would be obliged, and Adrian will be as well, if you could just complete that customer survey. It won't take very long to do, but each completed survey is evaluated, and we take on board all your comments that you make as well. So I'd ask for your assistance with that. Right, I think that's everything from my side. I've begun the recording now as well. Adrian, the floor is yours.
Cheers, Mark. Thank you very much. Hello and welcome, everyone. As Mark says, my name is Adrian Howe. It's great to have you on this afternoon's session, how to build your effective international digital marketing strategy, which for interest, is just one of the many sessions that makes up the new Export Academy How-To series. As a way of an intro, I've been part of the UK government for over the last 30 years. During that time, I've served in many different guises. Equally, I've been lucky enough to have worked and operated all around the globe, meeting and working with some amazing people, including Mark. And during that time, I always tried my best to be that key advocate for the United Kingdom, its friends, its businesses, and exports. So as mentioned, the How-To series, quite new. We've been running it now for maybe 5-6 months. So here on the slide is a rundown of the webinars we cover. So as always, no matter how far down or up the export path you are, you can dip in or out at your leisure. Additionally, as we do gather pace with the series, there'll be a chance to watch past webinars on the EA website. So please do keep checking back as more sessions are added. And hopefully, we'll have a full accompaniment of How-To webinars in the coming months on the EA site. But back to today, and as mentioned, it's all about how to build your effective international digital marketing strategy. So key learning objectives for today are up on the slide, but the overall aim of today's presentation, hopefully, we're going to help you to understand the global markets, its local nuances, pricing strategy basics, one of Mark's favourites, how to align your brand's goals with the needs of many diverse audiences, and also, getting your marketing right when selling overseas. And in doing so, making sure buyers, they become aware of your brand and feel compelled to buy your products or services, because that's what we all want at the end of the day. So, what is the message on the slide trying to tell us? What do we want to gain from it, or make the prospective buyer do? What do I want the person to do next? Do we want people to buy the product or services? Do we want them to become influencers, etc.? Also, how can we move the dial enough to get them to act, or what incentives, loyalty cards, can we bring into play? Should we send out newsletters, or should we have some reoccurring pop-up advertising on Facebook or TikTok, etc.? And remember, all this needn't be buy my stuff. You could go at things in a light touch way, perhaps by sharing your company details with your friends, family, colleagues, or clients, and maybe ask them to pass it on also. Or maybe it could just be find out more, or read this article, or just generally, be aware we exist. We're here. As mentioned, Facebook or clickbait. And if you're wondering what clickbait is, well, it's a digital marketing technique which aims to, let's say, generate an action of curiosity, provocation, or expectation so that the potential buyer clicks on the link to enter a web page, and there you go. So as an introduction, let's look at purpose. So expanding a brand's reach internationally requires a strategic, well thought out approach that takes into account local market conditions, consumer preferences, and logistical considerations also. Also, we've got to look at increasing customer engagement and sales. So this may involve a multifaceted approach that focuses on, let's say, on building strong relationships, creating value, and improving the overall customer experience. Make sure, obviously, to be that seller that the buyer wants to come back to time and time again. And looking at the importance of digital marketing, we've got global reach. So this refers to the ability of an organization, brand, or service to extend its influence, products or services worldwide. It can also signify a broad presence across various countries, regions, and cultures, and typically will involve other key areas which we'll cover later on. Also, cost-effective targeting. This refers to the practice of reaching the right audience in a way, that it maximizes the value of your marketing spend, while minimizing waste. It also involves using strategies and techniques that ensure, your marketing efforts are reaching those most likely to engage with you or purchase your product or service. And this is particularly important with digital marketing, where you can take advantage of data and analytics, to refine your targeting efforts. But remember, every country is different, as we'll see later on, and what works in one place, it may just not work in another. For example, let's say if you were carrying out marketing in the vastness of Africa, there may be less internet coverage in some areas and more radio in others. So don't forget to think about those old school radio jingles for any future advertising. So let's talk business objectives. So how are you going to attract customers? Are you looking at agents and distributors to do the work for you, including sales, referrals? Maybe you want to get people talking about you, i.e. on LinkedIn, for instance. Also, what sort of perception, do you want to create amongst your customers, buyers? Who do you want to target? High class, high profile? Or do you just want to pile them high, sell them cheap and get them out the door? More so, decide what your business objectives are going to be and build your strategy from there. Then perhaps decide which questions you need to ask yourself. For instance, do you want to build brand awareness in a particular territory? Maybe just choose one territory to start with, learn your trade, and then you can go out and conquer the world. Also, do you want to test the water first? And also, are you looking to slow burn or hit the ground running? Is low hanging fruit a good option, i.e. easy wins? But, what might these be? It may also be worth thinking about, again, as I mentioned, LinkedIn referrals from existing contacts who may have contacts from overseas or subsidiary companies. On the basis of that and having your objectives clear in your mind, hopefully, you'll hopefully be, I keep saying hopefully, you'll now be in a better position to hopefully focus your company's time and effort into those areas, which in essence, will give you the best opportunity of reward and hopefully make you that successful exporter. Because like I said at the start, that's what we all want. So let's have a look at market research in more detail. There is a lot of information contained here, so let's take a deep breath and let's go. So identifying the target market involves determining a specific group of potential customers for a product or service, and this process is crucial for effective marketing and your business strategy, and it can, to be fair, cover several factors such as demographics or demographic. Are you targeting children, teenagers, adults, or seniors? What's the gender also? And also, are your customers high income earners, middle class, or budget conscious buyers? Do you want to serve professionals, students, homemakers, retirees? And also, we've got to think about psychographic factors also. By this, we're looking at lifestyle, personality, values and beliefs. These could be sustainability, convenience, luxury. Geographic factors, are we targeting customers in a specific region, country, or cities? And also, is your product tailored to a certain climate? winter clothing, sun cream, etc.? And also, are you focusing on urban populations or rural communities? Other things we've got to look at, lots of things to look at. Behavioural factors such as purchasing habits, product usage, customer needs, etc., etc. It's a long list. So analysing local competition, again, is another crucial part of market research, as it will help you to understand, the competitive landscape and to identify opportunities or threats in the target market. So by this, we may be looking at our direct competitors. These can be businesses that offer the same product or services in your area. Indirect competitors, businesses that offer substitute products or services, and also emerging competitors. These could be new businesses or brands that become competitors in the near future. And it's also worthwhile keeping an eye on startups or innovations that also may disrupt your market. Also, what are the features and varieties they could offer? Are there any gaps that you could fill? How are competitors pricing their products? Are they positioned as low cost, mid range, or premium? How do their products compare in quality to yours? Are there any special features or value added benefits they offer? Also worth looking at competitors' market positioning. Also, how do your competitors present themselves in the market? Are they focusing on quality, affordability, convenience, or something completely different? Also good to look at, towards their brand messaging, just to give you an idea on how to differentiate your business. Also really important, who are the customers? As mentioned, are they targeting a particular demographic? Knowing this will help you identify any potential gaps in their audience. Also, what percentage of the market do your competitors hold? The larger the share, the harder it may be to compete directly with them. But again, this may also mean that it's a healthy market you're trying to delve into. Also good to examine the competitors' marketing and sales strategies. What is their digital footprint? What is their digital footprint like? Sorry. Look at the website, social media platforms, online reviews, and digital advertising. Also, what kind of content are they producing to attract and retain customers? How are they engaging with customers? Are they using loyalty programs, discounts, or other promotional tactics? Do they host events, etc.? Also, really essential is to evaluate their customer experience. Also, what are the customers saying about your competitors on review sites, social media, and forums? This will highlight their strengths and weaknesses and help you identify, areas to improve your own service. Be that mystery shopper, test their customer service channels, do it in person, by phone, email, live chat. Are they responsive, helpful? If possible, visit their stores or physical locations. How are customers treated? What kind of atmosphere do they create? Also, again, lots of things to think about. Assess their operational efficiency. By this, how do your competitors source their products or services? Are they relying on local suppliers, or do they have national, international suppliers? Understanding this, it can help you to identify ways to streamline your own operations. Also, competitors utilising technology that helps them improve their operations, customer service, or marketing. For instance, using advanced point of sale systems, customer relationship management software, or other tech tools, that could provide them with an edge. Also, how do they structure their team, and what training practices do they use to ensure a high quality product or service? Also, really, really important is to identify opportunities and threats. What strengths do your competitors have, and how can leverage them to your advantage? For instance, they may have a strong brand recognition or an established loyal customer base, which, to be fair, can't be easily replicated. Also, are their competitors gaining significant market share or planning to expand into your target area? How could this impact your growth or pricing? Maybe also conduct some SWOT analysis, the old strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, to compare your own business against your competitors. This will help you identify areas, where you can outperform them or areas that, you need to improve. Stay updated, really important, on any product launches, promotions, changes, in customer service practices or market strategies. So where will your product service sit in the market? Several factors needed to be considered here. These factors could include target audience, who are the primary customers, or the individuals, businesses, or specific group. Also market segment, which industry or sector does the product or service belong to? Is it a tech product, healthcare service, consumer goods, or B2B offering? Also value proposition, what unique benefits or features does the product or service offer compared to your competitors? And also competition, analysing competitors is key, to understanding where your product service sits in the market. If similar products already exist, what makes your offering so different. Pricing strategies, again, one of Mark's favourites, as mentioned. Will, the product be positioned as a luxury item, premium offering, or affordable option? Pricing can strongly influence, market positioning, impacting whether, the product is aimed at mass market consumers, premium buyers, or niche segments. Also marketing and branding, how you present and communicate your product's benefits will also determine where it fits. A brand's identity and position, it can make a massive difference in whether a product is seen as aspirational, everyday, or cutting edge. Also trends and industry insights, keeping an eye on current market trends and consumer behaviours, it will help you understand, where there may be gaps in the market. So lastly, looking at cultural nuances and preference, my favourite. So talking about cultural considerations for a second, I have a friend, one of our colleagues, one of Mark's friends. He lived and ran his business in France and wanted his barn re-roofing. He was given a selection of reputable roofer contracts, stay with me, and he rang one, and yes, amazingly, the roofer answered the phone, and he told my friend that he would be with him on Thursday. Thursday came and went, and then on a Thursday, 3 weeks later, the roofer turned up. My friend Robin asked the roofer, "I thought you were coming on the Thursday when I rang you." "Well, you monsieur," the roofer said, "but I never said which Thursday." Brilliant example and true. So when conducting market research and understanding and respecting cultural nuances and preferences, it's crucial for gathering, those accurate insights and ensuring that, your strategies are effective across all the diverse audiences. So language and communication style, language differences, ensure that any written materials that you produce, labels, etc., are translated correctly, considering idiomatic expressions, regional dialects, and also local terminology. We've got a thing called direct versus indirect communication. So in some cultures, for instance, Japan and China, people may prefer indirect communication, where they may not openly express disagreement or negative feedback. In contrast, in more direct communication cultures, such as, let's say, the US and Germany, people may be more open and forthright in their responses. So when we're talking about non-verbal communication, this can vary greatly. For example, in some cultures, eye contact is a sign of confidence and respect, whilst, in others, too much eye contact, it can be considered a little disrespectful. So just understanding these differences can be majorly important. Also, cultural sensitivities. Certain subjects, as we all know, may be sensitive in some cultures, such as religion, politics, or gender. And in some cultures, gender roles can significantly influence behaviour, preferences, and decision making. So remember to tailor your approach based on gender dynamics and ensure that, whatever you do, it's always inclusive and respectful. Also, a really important one, remember also religious holidays, customs and practices, they can influence people's time, behaviour and consumption patterns. And it's always handy to keep a note, maybe in your diary, of any major religious observance. Yeah, I can't get my words out today. Anyway, consumer behaviour, buying patterns, cultural norms, it can heavily influence purchasing decisions. For example, in some cultures, purchasing is more of a, let's say, communal decision involving the family or community input, whilst in others, they may make decisions independently. Brand perception also, certain brands may have a positive image in one culture, but a negative one in another. Also, price sensitivity, in some cultures, price may be the foremost factor in a purchaser's decision, whilst in others, they may prioritize quality, status, or emotional connection with a brand. Also, talking about technology adoption and digital behavior, internet, social media preferences, and mobile usage, they can differ across the many regions. For example, in many Asian markets, we've got mobile first strategies, and these are critical. Whilst in Europe and North America, they prefer desktop and laptop based internet usage, and it's pretty common in that area. So when we're talking applications and platform preferences, popular platforms, social media and e-commerce, they vary greatly across cultures. For instance, we've got WeChat in China versus WhatsApp in the Middle East or Facebook in the US. So researching these, preferences will allow you to select the most effective channels for reaching out to your target audience. Finally, trust and relationships, mega important one. So relationship building in many cultures, especially in parts of the Middle East, Asia and Latin America, it's a critical aspect of business. People may prefer face-to-face interactions, or at least, a higher degree of personal interaction before, agreeing to making personal purchasing decisions. So if you can get on the ground, meet the person in person, but make up a nice bond first, it's always a good thing. So research tools. So Google Trends gives a good indication of popularity. I can't get my P's out today. Gives a good indication of popularity of different search terms in different territories. Also, we've got Mark's favourite, I always say it, SEMrush and RFs, and these enable you to see, who the competitors are based on your own website, and how you can improve your own site to compete with them, and we'll cover them a little bit more detail later. Also, we've got the good old social media and analytics, so understanding your customer trends, placement, work for B2B, B2C companies, LinkedIn, still social media, so don't forget YouTube as well. And as mentioned, follow competitors and see, what's gaining the most engagement. Obviously don't copy them, but learn and create your own USP, unique selling point or selling proposition. So primary research from surveys and focus groups on your target audience. It may be expensive, but it'll give you some good first-hand data. And also AI tools, ChatGPT and Copilot. To be honest, they are changing the way we research, and they shouldn't be discounted. Yes, it's early days, but they are very useful in planning and research, and they are also good for planning campaigns and even even translating content. Although as you move forward and perhaps get a little bit slicker in what you're doing, and become more customer facing, you may want to consider using a more professional translation service. Lastly, search engines such as Google, Bing, Baidu, Yahoo will all offer useful insights into your market for your products and services. Quick mention also, tools like Euromonitor are also worth giving a mention, although they are fee-based. The tool is one of the leaders in data analytics and research into markets, industries, economies, consumers, and it does provide data on thousands of products and services. And lastly, we have our very own great.gov.uk market finder tool. I think we're going through a bit of a name change at the moment. Mark will probably update me on that at the end as I've been away. But choosing the right export market for your goods and services, as we all know, is one of the most important steps you'll need to take at the beginning of your export planning process. With over 100 market guides, I think, and the Where to Export tool, it will help you find the most suitable export markets for your goods and services. Additionally, you'll also be able to see how different cultures and languages, can influence how you bring your goods or services to market, and how visiting a market also, can help you prepare for entry into it, which is a major win-win. Can also help you find business opportunities, connect with overseas buyers, and also understand how to develop new networks, when you enter target export market, and so much more, and the website, it really is a massive, great, wonderful tool, so well worth visit. So here is a snapshot with regard pricing strategies, and as illustrated on the slide, and I'm sure you're aware, when exporting, there are other costs to be considered. So when you've identified the markets that are worth more consideration, then the next step in the process will require you to consider how to sell your product and who, if anyone, will be needed to support you in that market. This will then hopefully lead you to consider two essential aspects of your strategy, one of which will be pricing. But as the slide points out, and as I've already mentioned, remember, when pricing for export, there may be additional risks and costs to what is shown. So it's always best to set out your export prices accordingly. One of my favourite slides here, always a bit of a quiz question. You can put it in the Q&A at the end. No frills baked beans. Who used to sell them? I'll give you a clue. Supermarket chain that are no longer in business. I used to go there with my stepmom every Thursday to get his weekly shop. And yes, her name was Pandora, and obviously my name's Adrian, and I never lived that down. But there you go. I digress. But yeah, a few little graphics there for you to look at. So as we've touched on already, your pricing strategy needs careful consideration and will affect, how you market your goods. Your parameters for pricing are based on you and the potential end user, and your costs will guide you to the lowest price that is viable. Information about the end user will then hopefully guide you to the price that they're prepared to pay. So somewhere in between will lie your optimum price. Prices should also be set by bearing in mind the customer perceptions, competitor prices, and also business objectives. And when we're talking about competitors, as we already have done, remember, know your competition, do the homework. When Mark was starting out in the 90s, he had to go to the library to do his research. And now, we've got the wonderful thing called the internet. So use it. That's what it's there for. Also, as I also already mentioned, know your unique selling points and understand, how also the Made in GB Great Britain brand can have a positive impact on your pricing. Lastly, for this slide, strategic pricing methods, what are they? We have premium pricing. So by this, setting high prices in the hope that the higher price will give you the impression the goods of a higher quality. Economy pricing, typically used for generic products in a competitive market. And it's a strategy used by retailers such as Aldi, B&M, Home Bargains, etc. And also, low prices, low costs, no frills. Also got penetration pricing, so a technique to gain a market share quickly with a new product or service by selling initially at a low price. I suppose from a services perspective, we could look at new hotels or holidays, etc. Holiday lets, for example, last year, I had me summer holiday in Catalonia with my wife and my daughter, and I stopped to what I can only describe as a luxury villa. And to be fair, before we went, my wife said it was too good to be true. It had everything, including one of them fancy infinity pools, and it was new on the market. A new holiday let, and it was priced that summer to gain as much attention as possible. Which, looking at the prices this year, they've more than doubled, with booking levels, at the same level as they were for the previous year before. So it looks like they achieved their aim. So in summary, don't forget about the extra costs when exporting, and remember to factor all this in at the planning stage, when setting your export prices. Remember also, pricing decisions should be in line with business objectives, adjust base prices according to research and keep tabs on local market conditions. And yes, this will, of course, mean you're looking in several directions at once, like an owl spinning its head. But keep on top of it, and yeah, I'm sure it'll all be good. So, changing tact. Here is a very simple model for planning marketing content. Persona, who buys your goods. So we'll cover this a little later, or maybe the next slide. Who buys your goods? Different personas, like we all know, require different propositions and often exist, on different platforms or in different places. We've also got a platform. So this refers to the tools, technologies, and channels that, businesses use to execute, manage, and optimize their marketing strategy. And it also often includes, the digital tools or environments where marketing activities occur. Some examples of marketing platforms may include social media platforms, e-commerce platforms, email marketing platforms, content management systems, as we mentioned, CMS, and customer relationship management systems, CRM. And also, lastly, proposition. So what is it? And what is it that you're offering to them? And we'll cover this a little more later. I'm a bit excitable today. I don't know why, because I've just come back off leave after a week and a half. But I suppose that just shows how much I love my job. So persona development, as we mentioned. So as we mentioned, this is the process of creating detailed and realistic representations of target users or customers to help guide decision making in areas such as product development, marketing, and customer experience. And these personas are often based on qualitative, quantitative research, and they embody, the characteristics, behavior, and needs of different segments within a user base. All interesting stuff. So when we're talking about personas development, we need to think about demographics and psychographics, some of which are on the slide. And I know we've sort of mentioned a few of these already. Remember though, personas do change around the globe. Make sure to tailor, your personas accordingly. Perhaps give them names. And at the end of the day, with persona development, it will help you understand your target audience better. So, you can design user-centered products, craft personalized marketing managers, managers, more messages, and hopefully deliver some meaningful experience for your customers, clients. And remember, regular revisiting and updating personas ensures that, you will stay in touch with changing needs and behaviours. Busy slide this, not one of Mark's favourites. Yes, I agree with Mark, but it just gives us a good indication of the different marketing platforms, both digital and traditional. So on this slide, we are referring to various channels or tools through which, businesses can promote their products and engage with customers and hopefully drive their sales. These platforms, can be characterized in a variety of different ways, such as by type, i.e. social media, search engines, email, and by the nature of the interaction, i.e. paid or organic, or by audience focus, i.e. for instance, B2B or B2C. So highlighting social media from the digital side of things for a minute, this platform has become one of the most effective ways to engage with consumers. Popular platforms, as we all probably aware of, are Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok, and Snapchat, and Pinterest and YouTube. As you'll probably agree, all are great for building brand awareness, engaging with customers, running targeted ads, and influencer marketing. And on that, we also have a few influencer marketing platforms that connect businesses with social media influencers such as Influence.co, AspireQ, and Upfluence. But coming back to the more traditional side of things, we also have broadband media, TV and radio, good old business cards, but always remember the phone number, when using overseas international dialing codes, etc. Additionally, when we're talking printed or electronically produced brochures, as we touched on earlier, culturally, remember the cultural nuances and the specific religions and traditions of the different countries, that these are being used for. Think about the images, that you have on the pages. Will anything cause offence? With that said, it's always good just to do any last minute checks, due diligence before pushing that send button. And lastly, when choosing the right platforms or platform, this will really depend on, as we mentioned before, your target audience. Where does your audience spend most of their time? Marketing objectives. Are you focused on brand awareness, lead generation, or direct sales? And content type too. Do you have video, blog posts, or other types of content to share? And lastly, budget. Different platforms have varying costs, especially paid advertising options. And to be fair, the most effective marketing strategies often involve in combining several platforms, to create an integrated cross-channel approach that will maximize, the reach and engagement, and hopefully, getting you the best results possible. So, proposition refers to an offer or suggestion made to someone, a buyer in our case, often in the context of a business negotiation. So it typically outlines, what one party is offering to another and the terms of that offer, but more so, you need to be asking yourself, what do you want them to do and what messaging will you use to get them to do that? The varying context to look at, it could be a business proposition, so a proposal outlining product or service or collaboration idea, where one party offers something of value to another party along with terms and conditions. For example, we're offering you a 10% discount on bulk orders. Also value proposition, in marketing or business, this refers to the unique value that a product or service promises to deliver to the customers. And it also, it answers why a customer should choose your product over another, focusing on the benefits, that they will gain. For example, our software application will save you time and increase your productivity by helping you to automate your tasks. We also have a proposition in a negotiation. So a statement or offer that is made to find common ground or reach an agreement. For example, take this order with us and we'll give you a 10% discount on your next order if you double the quantities. But remember, propositions like personas, they are localized and will differ as per the countries that you do business in. So looking at a few examples of localization, TikTok, a young people's go-to apparently, although my wife, she's a nightmare, she uses it and she's 39. I can't get her off that TikTok shop. It's where she bought all her holiday wardrobe from. But anyway, as mentioned, many companies are also using influencers to promote and sell their products on their respective media channels. Amazon openly use influencers on their website. Other examples of localization in business may be McDonald's in India. So McDonald's offer vegetarian options like the Michelou Tiki Burger, catering to local dietary preferences. Also Netflix, it provides localized subtitles and content options for various countries, ensuring that users, can access content in their native language or with culturally relevant recommendations. Coca-Cola also in different countries. So Coke uses local languages in its advertising and packaging, and even adapts its flavour offerings to suit, the regional preferences where it sells its products. So localization and globalization are both critical concepts in business, particularly, for companies expanding into international markets. While they may be related, they do have distinct focuses, differences, and strategies. The definitions may be, let's say, for globalization, this is a process of designing products and services, that may be used universally without any significant changes across the different markets. As an example, let's say Apple sells the same iPhone model in multiple countries with the same design, features and branding, i.e. no changes. For localization though, this is a process of adapting a product or service or content to meet the specific needs, preferences and regulations of a specific local market. An example here could be probably a bit of an old school example, we'll say, let's say an Opel Kadett left-hand drive car that is made in Germany. This would then be modified for the UK market and perhaps come under the General Motors Vauxhall brand, as well as perhaps having a completely different model name, maybe the Vauxhall Astra. Other points to consider: make sure to tailor your content to local culture, language, colours, image, etc., and maintain your brand personality across the regions where possible. But be prepared though to change, your brand name in different countries, as I mentioned, Opel / Vauxhall. And for translation purposes, as we've already mentioned, again, ChatGPT is getting very good, and it's worth having a little look at. Also, as you mentioned at the start, working with local agencies also often the quickest and most cost-effective way to achieve market penetration, as well as taking advice from local agents or distributors, which is also a very good idea also, especially if you're wanting to set up a unique website in the regions where you're wanting to get your business up and running. So international search engines, no real surprises here with Google having the biggest global search engine, but unsurprising, it is losing its market share to Bing, having lost 10% of its share since its high of just over 9% in 2018 to just over 80% now. Yahoo, still big in Japan and also has a big following in the US. And Yandex, it holds the market in Russia, but it was also very popular in Eastern Europe due to the migration there. DuckDuckGo, one of my favourites, offers anonymous browsing and is growing amongst younger users. And Baidu is still the largest search engine in China. Other search engines include Naver and 360.cn in Asia. And would you believe it, AOL and Ask are still in existence in the US. AOL being one of the first internet services I used back in 1999 when I persuaded my dad to get involved with the internet revolution, and it's great to see it still hanging in there. So each search engine has a different algorithm that they use, and therefore different requirements for search engine optimization. And for those that are unsure what an algorithm is, well, it's a set of commands that must be followed for a computer to perform calculations or other problem-solving operations. So search engine optimization, as we mentioned on the last slide, two really important concepts that work hand in hand to improve a website's visibility and relevance across the many different markets and search engines. In a nutshell, SEO and localization are closely tied. Why? Because effective localization improves the SEO performance of a website in local markets. Additionally, I will say a well-executed localized SEO strategy can also significantly increase a brand's visibility, improve rankings, and connect with audiences in many ways, whether expanding into new countries or improving regional rankings. You know, both search engine optimization and localization must work together to create an effective online presence. Again, one of Mark's favorites. Quickly, we'll skip through this. So what is domain name? Well, essentially, it's the web address that you type into your browser to visit a website on the internet. For example, www.great.gov.uk. It's an easier to remember string of characters that is mapped to an IP address, which is the numbers bit, which is how computers locate websites. And the domain name system, or DNS as it likes to be called, then translates the domain name into the IP address. So when we're talking domain registration, so to own a domain name, you first need to register it through a domain registrar such as GoDaddy, Namecheap, or Google Domains, and this will require paying an annual fee. So in a way, the domain name system is like the phone book of the internet. You know, when you type a domain name into the browser, the DNS server looks up the corresponding IP address and connects you to a website. And without the DNS, you know, you'd have to remember a long string of numbers, IP addresses, as we mentioned, instead of simple domain names. So when selecting a domain for your website, it's important to consider choosing a domain that reflects your brand and is easy to remember and sounds appealing. Shorter domain names are easier to remember, obviously, and type, but can be harder to obtain since many are already taken. Always good to avoid hyphens or numbers, as they can, as we mentioned, be confusing and harder to remember. And lastly, you know, once you're registered a domain, you need to manage it. Domains are usually registered for 1 year and can be renewed annually. And remember, if you don't renew, you could possibly lose the domain itself. Finally, and more importantly, when you register a domain, your personal contact information, such as email, phone number, and address, will often be made public in the Whois database. I'll say it again, the Whois database. So to protect your privacy, you can opt for the domain privacy protection, which will then hide your details from public view. Channel localization. So again, I think we got the gist of this a few slides back. So if this is something you want to take a deeper dive into and find out more, we do cover this in our Digital Edge series. So please look out for this in our calendar of events. But what I will say is that it is becoming increasingly more important to localize your social media to different territories, as the slide shows. And as I mentioned before, and using in-country agents, etc. And as we previously discussed, channel localization typically refers, to the process of adopting or customizing a channel in a media platform or another relevant context to better serve a specific geographical region, language, or audience group. The term can be applied in several different fields, and examples of this may be media and content distribution, e-commerce and marketing channels. So worth having a look at. So the next couple of slides, we'll just summarize what we've looked at today. So know your audience, know where they're located, what your message is going to be, so as to have that impact, you want and require. Also localize your website and social media for international audiences, and connecting emotionally, with your audience. It's one of the most powerful ways to build lasting relationships, with your buyers and create that meaningful impact. As a seller, emotional connections do help people feel understood, valued, connected, and invested in your product. So website, social media monitoring and evaluation is an essential process for organizations and individuals who want to measure and understand the effectiveness, engagement, and overall performance of their digital presence. This process involves tracking activities on websites and analysing the results to guide decision making going forward. So looking at this slide and website, we've got Google Analytics, as we've already mentioned. It provides in-depth insights, user behavior, traffic sources and performance. And as we touched on, and for all those wondering, SEMrush and RFs are two of the most widely used tools in the digital marketing, specifically for search engine optimization, online visibility analysis, and they're both really powerful platforms that provide in-depth data on websites, search rankings, backlinks, competitor analysis, and other SEO related factors. And lastly, tools for monitoring social media. We've got Hootsuite, which tracks engagement, mentions, and performance across multiple platforms. Social Sprout also, not Sprout Social, and this analyzes social media metrics and provides reporting and engagement tools. So just here are a few takeaways from the session to consider when developing an international digital marketing strategy. So market research and analysis. So conduct thorough research to understand the political, economic, social, cultural factors in each target market. Cultural needs, one of my favourites again. Remember, understanding and respecting cultural nuances and preferences is crucial for gathering, those accurate insights and ensuring, that your strategies are effective across all diverse audiences. Digital strategy and online presence. So optimize your website and digital content for your local search engine and keywords, and remember to utilize region-specific platforms, and remember also to create content that will appeal, to local audiences. Promotion and advertising. Identify the most effective local marketing channels, social media, television, radio, print, events, etc. for each market. And also you remember to set clear objectives and goals, clear measurable goals for each market, i.e. market share, revenue, target brand awareness. Pricing strategy, set those prices that reflect the local purchasing power, competition, and perceived value of your product. And really important, legal and regulatory compliance. Ensure you know your market practices comply with the local laws, regulations, and protect your brand by understanding those international trademarks and intellectual property laws. And lastly, and really important, monitor and adjust. Always good to regularly. I can't get my words out today. Always good to regularly monitor the effectiveness of your strategy and using those key performance indicators tailored to each market, and be prepared, to make those adjustments based on customer feedback, market trends, or external changes to continuously refine your approach to improve those results. And that brings me to the end of my presentation. So I'm sure you agree, a lot to take in, a lot for me to talk about. But as mentioned, a recording copy of the slides will be sent out to everyone after the session. And lastly, don't forget to check out www.great.gov.uk. I'm sure it's business.gov.uk now. And additionally, for any export questions, please contact our DBT team at the Export Support Service. They are really a super duper great set of people who can help you with any questions that you may have. And back to you, Mark.
Thanks, Adrian. Thanks for your presentation there. I think, as you say, quite rightly, really, Adrian, there is a lot to take in on this. And I think one of the biggest takeaways would be the very last comment of your takeaways, which is continually monitor and adjust accordingly. I mean, there is no one size fits all for anybody looking to export. And it really is, you really do have to tailor it to the particular markets and continually evaluate that as well. If it's not working, there's a reason behind it. You just need to identify what that reason is and adjust accordingly. It's continual improvements. And along those lines, and that's a good entree for me, to take you to the customer survey. I put it in both the chat and in the Q&A box as well. As I said in the Q&A box, we know we're not perfect, but we do aspire to be better, and we can only do that with your help and support with the offer that we make. Every completed survey is reviewed. We look at them and we try and implement the changes that you ask us to make or additions to the service we offer already. So please don't think it's a wasted time. It only takes a few moments, but it really is valuable to us to get your feedback accordingly. If you have any questions, I have taken the restriction off the microphones now. So if you care to use the icon on the top of the screen, the raise, the hand sign, if you use that, if you've got a question, we'll come to you accordingly. You can take yourself off mute and ask your question of Adrian. It's at this point, Adrian, where I always find one or two things have happened. Either when there are no questions, either you've been that thorough that everybody's just fully conversed. They know everything they need to do now to go ahead and put a, or they've fallen asleep. And I fear, no, it's not. I'm sure it's not that, Adrian. People, I mean, if you listen, don't be shy. If you've got questions, you don't have to come online and speak about them, but you can put them in the Q&A box, type it out, and we'll try and answer them if we can. If there are no questions, that's fine as well. I'm not going to hold you up against the wall and force you and pressure you into asking questions. That's fine. All I would say, Adrian, if we don't have any more questions, thank you for your time today. Thanks for your presentation. Everybody on the call, look out for the email which will contain the recording, plus a copy of the slide deck as well. You'll have that to be able to go over again. And I know there's some details on the slides that are better off. You can sit and think about them and have a good look at them whilst thinking about what Adrian's saying as well. You can match the two up that way. And of course, look at the portal, look at the calendar of events to see what we've got coming up soon. Lots of exciting things happening within the Exports Academy, not least we've got a whole series of webinars based around the Indian Free Trade Agreement that's just been agreed and is going through the ratification process. If it's somewhere you've thought of over the recent weeks and months, your thoughts of India. If you're having thoughts about it, come along to the webinar. The series starts on Friday morning, 10 o'clock. Get yourself registered on there, tick the box. Top tip for a Wednesday, if you can't make Friday morning at 10 o'clock, tick the box, register your intent to attend. And if you don't make it because of life getting in the way, we understand that. If you can't make it on Friday, as long as you've ticked the box, you get a copy of the recording plus a copy of the slide deck as well. So there's no need to miss out. Adrian, do you have any final comments?
Yeah, just to say thanks to Dominique. That was very, very kind.
Oh, there we go. Really useful presentation. Yeah, really clear and easy to digest. Yeah, there you go. Well, Dominique, that's it. We're nothing if we're not human. We pride ourselves on the fact that we may work for a government department, but we are human beings as well. And I think that comes across. I hope it comes across. We definitely try and promote it, Adrian, don't we?
We do, yeah. Cheers and for that. Thanks, Mariam, also.
Yeah, and if you think that was good, just think how Adrian would be if he put his teeth in the right way around. Thanks, listen, thanks everybody. We appreciate your comments. Thank you, Dominique. It is very kind of you to mention, and I'm sure it's a virtual pat on the back for Adrian as well. Well done.
Yeah, thanks for that. Appreciate
it. Cheers, everybody. We'll see you again very soon.
Cheers, Mark.
Thanks, Adrian.
Thanks all. Take care.
Cheers, mate. Bye-bye.